right, and welcome back to The Lead Word. This is your host, Trey Delbert, along with me, as always, co-host Chad Bauman. Today is technically Friday, October 18th. We're recording this a little bit after midnight. The Thursday night game between the Broncos and Chiefs just wrapped up. Chad, what's going on? How you doing today?
Not much going on. I returned back to work today after being out for 2 weeks due to my hernia surgery. So that kind of sucked.
That's it? Nothing else?
No,
Back
I just
to work?
went to work. All I did was go to work today.
All right. As for me, just you know, I don't know, not much. Watching the games, watching playoff baseball today. Didn't have much going on.
He's rooting for the
But we can
Yankees right now.
Get the fuck out of here. Never. Just that word makes my skin crawl. Anyway, this week, gonna do something a little bit different. We're gonna open up a little bit of news here. Patrick Mahomes dislocates his knee.
Oh, my leg! My leg!
Now, we don't have the exact timetable on the recovery yet. I've been trying to catch up on what's happening. Best case scenario looks like maybe 3 or 4 weeks. Popped his kneecap out. They're hoping he didn't tear any ligaments, but if he did tear something, he's probably done for the whole year, or I should say is done for the whole year. So, Chad, let's say, maybe he misses 3, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Is the Chiefs season over? Because it's over if he's done for the year. But can they maintain, 3, 4, 5, 6 week stretch without him? Can they hold on? Can they survive?
I think that depends entirely on who they play, because I think there's so much talent on their offense that, the Broncos, they're not world beaters, but they have a pretty decent defense, and Matt Moore still put up, 28 points on them?
Yeah, but at the same time, that Broncos team is just done. That Broncos team, there's teams that come into the year and every team has hope. Every team has optimism. It's at that point in the season where you're on that Denver Broncos team, you're fucked. Your season's
their
over.
offense would definitely quit.
Yeah, it's just done.
You could tell just by their body language that in that third quarter, halfway through the third quarter, they were just done. They were like, let's just go home.
They were done in the second quarter. They were done. That whole team, they don't believe in Flacco. Flacco doesn't give two fucks about anything. All those guys just look mentally checked out. They know they can't win.
I'm looking at the Chiefs' schedule right now, and
yeah, let's see it.
So the next 2 games are pretty tough.
Okay,
they're at home though, so that'll help. They got the Packers and they got the Vikings.
I think they could sneak one out against Minnesota. Maybe. They're not beating Green Bay.
Probably not. But again, Minnesota, they have a good defense. Minnesota can run the ball, so
yeah,
that'll help.
Yeah.
And we're not going to have Patrick Mahomes to throw for 4,000 yards in the game against them either, so that'll help too. But let's just say they drop both of those. The next 3 games are Titans, Chargers, and Raiders. You're on the road for 2 of those. You're on the road for 2 of those, but that Chargers game might as well be a home game.
True. They could win 2 games, 3 games in that, little stretch.
Yeah. So
I think the Vikings game is winnable too.
I agree. I think that's winnable. So again, it's gonna depend on Mahomes' injury.
Yeah.
Because I would assume that it's not as bad, because I feel like we would be hearing a lot more about it. But remember, Teddy Bridgewater dislocated his kneecap.
Yeah. I think most likely he's going to be done for the year. But there is a chance. I remember a couple years ago, Matt Stafford dislocated his knee. He got lucky. He was able to come back in 3 weeks. It's all going to depend on if he tore anything in his knee. And most of the time, that's the case. But it's possible they got lucky. So right now, we don't know the diagnosis. We'll probably know by the time this thing comes out. He's supposed to get an MRI right away. But we'll see.
Well, they have to, especially do the MRI. It's not a blood vessel. There's an artery or something that runs near your kneecap, and a lot of times when you dislocate it, it severs it. That's why when Teddy Bridgewater dislocated his 3 years ago, they thought he might lose his leg.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying it's good news for Pat Mahomes, because we haven't heard the Pat Mahomes might be losing his leg talk like we did 10 seconds after Bridgewater got in the ambulance.
So I'm sure we'll find out by the time this comes out. But the good news for the Chiefs, the AFC is awful.
You suck.
You win 4 games in a stretch where, maybe you go 500 without Pat Mahomes, you should still make the playoffs.
Right. Because, it's not like they have a losing record or anything right now anyway.
Right now, you're 5-2.
Yeah, so you're above 500. So
you win 4 games the rest of the year, you're getting in.
Yeah, you might need 5, but yeah.
Anything else on Kansas City? I guess it really hurts their weapons in terms of fantasy. Like, do you want anybody in fantasy when Matt Moore's starting?
Maybe Shady.
It's rough.
He might get more touches now that Mahomes isn't there.
That's true. He did have a pretty good game tonight. I gotta admit, I thought he was washed. I thought he was done. He looks all right.
Well, he had the fumble against the Texans and gave up the game basically.
He had a really good game today, though. Albeit against the Broncos, but
he did.
All right, I guess. Are you ready to move on to takeaways?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll get started. Takeaway number 1. Again, you're listening to The Lead Word. This is Trey Daubert. Follow me on Twitter at Trey Daubert, TreyDaubert. Check out the website. Of course, you can find all of our content there, vendettasportsmedia.com. And also give Chad a follow at Lilfooted, LALFOOTED. Subscribe to the YouTube page. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter. Do all that stuff. Just do it. Anything else to add, Chad, to that?
No, I think you covered it all.
Okay. All right. So last week, I did a little bit of a Denny Green throwback. They are who we thought they were.
They are who we thought they were.
I talked about Baker Mayfield, how I thought he was being overhyped coming into the draft. So far this year, he's looked awful. Once again, he threw 3 picks. Cost the Browns the game against Seattle. But I want to change it up. I want to talk about somebody new, somebody in that same draft class. They are who I thought they were. They're exactly who I thought they were. Chad, coming into this season, or I should say, the New York Jets were absolutely lost without Sam Darnold. Forget about scoring touchdowns, Chad. This team couldn't pick up first downs. Chad, the Jets were so bad. They were borderline Dolphins level. And I'm going to give you some stats just to prove it. So Darnold did play in week 1. But he did not play in week 2. And I guess, last week was week 7. So he didn't play from week 2 to week...
No, last week was week 6. It's week 7 this week.
All right, so he didn't play from week 2 to week 5. During that stretch, the Jets averaged 7.7 points a game. That was 31st in the NFL. They averaged 165 yards a game. That's last. They averaged 139 passing yards a game. That's last. Which means they were averaging 20 rushing yards a game. Also last. They were in that stretch, they had 28 first downs from week 2 to week 5. 28 first downs. That's horrendous. By the way, during that stretch, they had more defensive and special teams touchdowns than they did offensive touchdowns. They had 2 special teams, and defensive touchdowns. They had 1 offensive touchdown that whole stretch.
You suck.
Sam Darnold comes back with a bad offensive line, with scrub Le'Veon Bell, with basically no weapons, with a banged-up defense, no C.J. Mosley. And this guy comes in, and he puts the Jets on his back, and he says, we're going to stick the Dallas Cowboys in our back pockets, and we're going to come out of here with a win because I'm the franchise quarterback, and I'm the best quarterback in that 2018 draft, and I'm the fucking man.
And I'm going to get mine.
And he is who I thought he was. Sam Darnold is fucking good, Chad. He's not just, franchise quarterback, he's not just, maybe he can be a top 15 guy. He's fucking good. Youngest quarterback ever. Got his feet wet a little bit as a rookie. He's still really, really young. The sky's the limit for this guy. He's awesome.
They are who we thought they were.
I totally agree. I owe Sam Darnold a beer. If I could go to New York right now and buy him a beer, I would.
You know what the funny part is? So the Jets played the Eagles and Cowboys in back-to-back weeks. He didn't play against Philadelphia, and he decides I'm going to come back for the Cowboys game.
I love Sam Darnold. I always say I have 2 favorite teams, the Eagles and whoever beats the Cowboys. And Sam Darnold got my second favorite team a win this weekend.
By the way, can we also acknowledge that during that Cowboys game, Le'Veon Bell had 14 carries for 50 yards. God awful. His offensive line has been terrible all year. The defense, didn't do any favors. Zeke Elliott ran the ball a lot. He rushed for over 100 yards. When the Cowboys rush for over 100 yards, they usually win. Well, they didn't win this time. This guy, Sam Darnold, just put this team on his back. 338 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, big bomb to Robbie Anderson that basically saved the game. First start, I kind of thought this guy just had mono. You can't really expect a ton, right? It was like he was never sick. It's incredible.
I'm still not 100% convinced that he had mono. I think it was something else. I'm not convinced. I am not buying it that in today's NFL that he hasn't had mono yet. Sam Darnold's been getting laid since he was 3. There's no way he hasn't had mono.
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
He's kind of ugly. Let's be honest.
He's baby-faced.
Let's be honest, though. Aren't you supposed to lose a bunch of weight? He didn't look that small or skinny. He looks pretty, big and thick. You know it?
I guess. I don't know.
Do you have anything for Darnold? Because I think this guy's really good. I don't think we're giving him enough credit for how good do people realize this is the youngest rookie quarterback ever? He's 22. 22. He's not going to be 23 until June.
I don't know, man. I don't know if people don't realize how good he is. I don't know what the situation is. I know Sam Darnold's good. Some of the throws that he was making were perfect throws.
I'm glad you mentioned that because, some guys just pop off the screen. Some things that Carson Wentz does, you're like, how the fuck did he just do that? There are throws that Sam Darnold makes, and you just sit there and you're like, whoa, how did that happen?
There was one to Jamison Crowder where he dropped it right over Jamison Crowder's shoulder on the sideline, and I was like, that's
whoa.
That it looked like a Madden animation. That's how fake it looked. To be honest with you.
I think he's awesome. I think he's really, really good. I just people are a little bit, they're like, oh, good win for the Jets. Darnold looked good, but this is a guy that's working with nothing. The Jets have nothing. They couldn't pick up first downs without this guy. This roster stinks.
I agree. So, again, I think you're absolutely right. I think Sam Darnold, if he's not already, I don't think he's there yet, but he's definitely going to be top 5 in the league within the next probably 2 years.
Totally agree. I think he's awesome. I really do.
Anything else on Darnold, Trey?
Nope. Just can't wait to see how good he can be. This is just the beginning. Just scratching the surface.
We're going streaking!
All right. So, for my first takeaway, I'm sure you can guess where I'm going with this.
No, Chad.
Trey, you asked me last week after the Eagles beat the Jets. What else do you have to say? They beat the Jets and just move on.
Yes.
You saw this week, Trey, why you can't just say they beat the Jets and move on.
Oh no! We suck again!
I've been an Eagles fan my whole life. I know how they like to do me dirty. There's no reason why you shouldn't have had momentum coming off that Green Bay game, off that Minnesota game, or that Green Bay game, and that Jets game. You shouldn't have been able to go into Viking Stadium, whatever the hell it's called, and beat up on the Vikings and Kirk Cousins. Now we're releasing guys. We're not trading for corners. I'm at a loss. The only thing that's keeping us even decently in these games is Carson Wentz. And I think it's making Wentz play. I actually think Wentz is playing worse than he can because he's trying to he's trying to do too much.
You know, Chad, I sit here today and I think you might think I'm crazy. I think the Eagles lost that game before it ever started. I think Zach Brown made one of the giant mistakes of the year. You just can't open your mouth like that. You just can't do that. There's a reason why Belichick, he's the best, and it's because he always knows what to say. He never beats himself. He never gives the opposition bulletin board material. Mike Zimmer and the Minnesota Vikings, they're one of those teams that they're really good off a loss. They play well at home. They're a good defense. They're well coached. They're a team. They don't beat themselves. You have to beat the Vikings. And when you give the Vikings some ammunition and you get a good performance out of Kirk Cousins and you say Kirk Cousins, he stinks and he's the worst part of the team. If you get a good Kirk Cousins, the Vikings are a very good team. Zach Brown deserved to get cut. Zach Brown, secondary was horrible. But you can't do that, Zach Brown. You cannot do that.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. What he said was bad. I'm not going to take anything away from that. The problem is, though, it's not like Zach Brown was the issue. It wasn't our ability to stop the run, because we stopped the run game. They couldn't run against us.
You stop the run every week.
Zach Brown's comments aren't the reason why our corners have been getting torched all year. So I don't agree with it would be in Zach Brown. It's the cornerbacks. And we should have traded for a corner, but we didn't.
Pick up the phone and start dialing.
How about Jalen Mills? Hey, he's coming back. A little bit of a spark there for the secondary. Huh?
The only problem with Jalen Mills is he's only good in the red zone. He sucks anywhere else on the field.
I'm not saying he's great. I'm not saying he's a world beater. But anything's better than what they're putting out there right now.
Oh, I agree. I think having Jalen Mills come back isn't a bad thing. I'm not saying it is. But what I'm saying is they need a guy.
Do you think they need to make a trade? Do they need to pull the trigger on somebody?
I said this last week. I would have traded for Chris Harris.
Who's available, though?
Like in free agency?
No, in the trade market.
You could get Chris Harris.
Chris
I
Harris.
guarantee
Who
you
else?
could offer the Broncos a first-round pick, and they'd send you Chris Harris for it.
Oh, God. You can't give them a first-round pick for Chris Harris.
I think you can. He's the number one corner.
He's good, but he's up there in age. He doesn't have many years left. I wouldn't do that.
I would say Xavier Howard. My only thing with him is He's not the greatest man defender, and the Eagles play a lot of man.
I want to say this. I think Philadelphia will beat Dallas this week. I know everything looks bad, and I know the secondary looks horrible. I think Dallas quit on Jason Garrett.
Oh,
I think
too.
he's lost the team.
Did you see them coming off the field?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think Jason Garrett's lost the team. I think this is a must-win game for Dallas. Because if they lose to Philly and they feel like the Eagles are better than them, they're quitting. That team is on pins and needles ready to quit on Jason Garrett if they haven't done so already.
I'm going to tell you right now, the key is just keeping them out of 3rd and short. Like,
Probably.
anything 3rd and 5 and longer, and Dak doesn't have it.
Yeah.
And
Stop the run. You should win.
That's what the Jets did.
Yep.
They did not let them get into 3rd and 5 or shorter.
For the most part, yeah. I think Philadelphia's going to win this week. I think Dallas is on the verge of a huge blow-up. I think Jason Garrett's completely lost this team. So I know if things look bad in Philadelphia, I'll be shocked if they lose.
The defense has to help Wentz. They're not doing him any favors. I'm going to say that.
I think the biggest thing is we don't know if Cooper's going to play. Tyron Smith is already out. Lyle Collins is already out. Dallas isn't the same team without that offensive line, and if Cooper doesn't play, they're really screwed.
I feel good about this game.
Yeah, I do too.
That's it. I said my piece on Philly this week.
I guess I have one more thing. We'll keep it a little shorter this week. You know, there's a thing in the NFL that happens. There's 2 ways to win. You either got to have your high-priced, elite-level franchise quarterback, or you have a quarterback on a rookie contract who's not making a ton of money, and you can spend your cap on the rest of the roster, and you can make the team look good despite not having the greatest quarterback. Last year, the Bears won a lot of games because they have a great defense, and they have some offensive weapons, but they have a bad quarterback. And it held them back, but they were still able to win some games. You got to have high-priced, elite-level quarterback or a quarterback on a rookie contract where you can spread everything out to the rest of the roster. You can afford free agents. You can do all that. 2 ways to win, right, Chad?
I concur.
So this year, some rookie contract extensions started coming out for the quarterbacks. Carson Wentz got his contract from that draft. And Dak Prescott didn't get his contract yet. But Jared Goff got more money than Carson Wentz did. And his contract has already kicked in. They put it in this year. And what do you know, Chad? The Los Angeles Rams are starting to crumble. Because Todd Gurley, he's making a lot of money. But now he's not the same guy. And now they have some injuries along the offensive line. And they had to let a couple offensive line pieces go. Roger Saffold left in free agency because they didn't feel like they could afford him. And this roster is going to start becoming more expensive. And it's just the beginning.
Son, your ego is writing checks your body can't cash.
They trade for Jalen Ramsey, but they really don't have any money. They're paying 12 guys over $9 million a year.
Oh, real quick, one thing that I just briefly forgot to mention, and you just reminded me. Jalen Ramsey was available. They could have gotten him. He would have fit with our defense.
Although I think Jacksonville would have preferred the Rams picks.
I'm sorry, not Jalen Ramsey. I meant Marcus Peters, because the Rams traded him to Baltimore.
Does he fit the defense though? Peters is a very, very zone-heavy corner.
No, he can play man.
I don't know about that. Anyway, the Rams. You need high-level, expensive franchise quarterback or average quarterback on rookie contract. They've made Jared Goff into the high-priced quarterback. The problem is he's not elite. And the rest of this roster is starting to suffer. And some of the guys they've paid are starting to get old. And now the Rams are really in deep trouble. Chad, this past Sunday, with his pieces, when Jared Goff doesn't have the perfect environment anymore, and Todd Gurley isn't the same, and defenses have started to figure out the McVay offense, Jared Goff threw for 78 yards. 78 yards, Chad, and they were trailing the whole game with no running game and basically said, Jared Goff, lead us to victory. Chad, I think the Rams are fucked. I think they're totally screwed. This Jared Goff extension was an enormous mistake.
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
I think that I was going to say if they didn't sign him, their fan base was going to riot, but considering that LA apparently doesn't care about football, I don't think they had to worry about that at all.
I don't think so either.
I think that you take a guy first overall, he's been putting up the numbers that he's been putting up under Sean McVay, even though that's a lot of Sean McVay smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
I don't think you can justify not paying him to the 5 fans that you do have.
I wouldn't have paid him.
I wouldn't have either. I mean, so for example, I think the highest I would have went with him because, I mean, coming into this season, you knew that McVay liked him. Or at least I assume Sean McVay likes him.
I just think there's too many red flags here. Number one, Jared Goff statistically is the worst quarterback under pressure. He is the lowest passer rating under pressure. You don't give him protection, he can't do anything. Without Todd Gurley, he looks horrible. Last year without Cooper Kupp, he was terrible. Chad, how many quarterbacks in the league could have won that Super Bowl against the Patriots? He needed what? 14 points, right? Or no. Right? 14 points they needed to win that Super Bowl. He put up 3. And he was terrible.
Yeah. I think the Patriots, no, they had 15, didn't they?
I don't know. Whatever it was. 15, 13, 12.
It was a very winnable game. Let's put it that way.
There's a lot of quarterbacks in this league that could have won that game. I think Blake Bortles could have won that game. I think Andy Dalton might have won that game. He could not have played worse in that Super Bowl. And so far this year, he has absolutely been atrocious with an excellent head coach. But some of the pieces on the roster are not perfect anymore, and he looks like a completely different guy.
Speaking of, Dak Prescott could have won that game. At least Dak
Very possible. It's very possible. You can't throw for 78 yards in the NFL. Can't do it.
He's not very good. I think McVay likes him. The most I would have paid him, and I'm talking he's got Sean McVay lobbying for him very hardcore. Maybe 28 is the highest I would go. And that's if Sean McVay's you need to pay him, otherwise I quit.
And I do think McVay likes him, but I don't see it. I really don't. I think they're really screwed. Chad, do you have one more thing for this week?
I do. It's a quick little takeaway. I don't know if anybody remembers, but I said that to start the season, my pick to win the NFC South was the Carolina Panthers. Cam Newton didn't have my back because we said it's all going to depend on how Cam plays, what Cam shows up. Cam didn't have my back. They lose to the who did they lose to? I don't even remember. 2 crappy teams, the Buccaneers and somebody else.
Bucks and Rams.
The Bucks and Rams. Cam doesn't have any touchdown passes. Christian McCaffrey can't run the ball. It just all looks terrible. Fast forward to week 3. Kyle Allen has my back. The Panthers, they're 4-0 under Kyle Allen. He's throwing touchdown passes. Christian McCaffrey's doing front flips into the end zone because he's having a good time now. He's getting all kinds of touches. I said this, I think, a couple weeks ago. The Panthers weren't doing me any favors with that pick. The pick is back on. It's looking good under Kyle Allen. Panthers are going to win the NFC South.
Chad, didn't I say this a couple weeks ago? I remember doing a show, and I believe I said Cam Newton has played his last game for the Carolina Panthers. Do you remember that? Did I not say that?
We did talk about it. We did. And I remember the conversation basically went, depending on how Kyle Allen plays and what Cam looks like when he comes back, would depend on whether or not he has played his last game in a Panthers uniform.
Cam Newton's not getting his job back.
I just got out of jail and I ain't going back. I ain't going back.
Absolutely not. You can't.
Nope.
You always got to go with the hot hand in the NFL.
Yep. Kyle Allen, as an NFL starting quarterback, has not lost. He's undefeated this year. He was undefeated last year. By the way, here's a little unknown fact. I did write about this. Kyle Allen, in his high school class, was the number 1 high school quarterback recruit in the country. Number 1. He was rated ahead of Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson was the number 2 rated quarterback in the high school class. Number 1. Now, Kyle Allen, he went to Texas A&M. He lost his starting job. You're like, oh, shit, maybe he's not that good. Well, he lost his starting job to Kyler Murray. Not a terrible guy to lose your job to. Kind of got lost in the shuffle, transferred out, didn't get drafted, but, maybe he just didn't have the right situation in college. Maybe he goes to another school and he's really good. Maybe he's just a late bloomer. Maybe he just figured this quarterback thing out a little bit later than we thought he would.
I mean, he's looking good so far. What's his touchdown-interception ratio?
Well, I don't know, Chad. I didn't have that one ready for you.
You're the stat man, Trey.
Help me. Help me.
I don't think he's thrown that many picks. He can't have more than 4.
Give me a second. Right now it's 7-0. 7 touchdowns, 0 picks.
Yep, see, told you can't have more than 4.
He's played awesome. He looks really good.
You absolutely, if Cam comes back, cannot move on from Kyle Allen because it's just going to disrupt you. Your offense is working. You can't disrupt your offense to say, play what if with Cam Newton at this point.
Kyle Allen is doing exactly what he should be doing. Christian McCaffrey's getting the bulk of the offense, and he's picking up first downs when he needs to.
Trey, anything else?
Not much. Getting ready for a good week 7 coming up. Couple games I like. Not much else. Good week.
If the Eagles had won, this would have been the perfect week for me. The tank is on in my fantasy team. Guess what? Score 120-something points.
Well, Philip Lindsay didn't have a great night tonight, but
that's fine. Cole Beasley is going to go off on Sunday, and I just picked him up tonight.
You still might win because you're playing one of the worst teams in the league too.
For me right now, it's all about the points.
Yep.
If I have the opportunity to steal a first-round pick from somebody and then still make the playoffs.
All right, Chad. Anything else for this week?
No, that's all I got. Go Birds.
That's it for me.
All right, well, don't forget to give us a follow on Twitter, Vendetta_media. Check us out on Facebook as well. Give us a like there. Don't forget to follow Trey at Trey Daubert, TreyDaubert. Check me out on Twitter at Lilfooted, LILFOOTED. Also, don't forget to subscribe and like if you can like the YouTube channel, but definitely subscribe to it because I know you can do that. That way we can post more videos. That's really important because I said this before, I'll say it again. We're trying to get paid. Other than that, thanks for giving us a listen, and we'll see you next week.